So, if you haven't heard, there was somewhat of a dumpster diving incident in Oregon recently where the grocery store, Fred Meyer's, which is owned by Kroger, threw out a bunch of uh, perishable food, right? And, local residents and people went to the dumpsters to salvage the food, and they were met with hostility from the workers, the owner of the store, as well as the local police. So, before I get into this article from Oregon Live that really details the situation, just let me give you a couple of things that happened. So, they threw the food out, a lot of food, like they were filling up dumpsters with this food, and people showed up, and they were met by the coworkers who were guarding the dumpsters, and eventually the coworkers called police, and police showed up, and a lot of police showed up, and they were trying to trump people on trespassing, and they were threatening to arrest people, and the whole nine. And it got a little bit nasty, not too nasty. There was no violence that I know of, but it was just a hostile situation. And so I want to read for you what the company had to say. They had issued a statement. They say, unfortunately, due to loss of power at this store, some perishable food was no longer safe for donation to local hunger relief agencies. Our store our store team became concerned that area residents would consume the food and risk foodborne illness, and they engaged local law enforcement out of an abundance of caution. We apologize for the confusion. Now, that might sound, oh, okay, that sounds reasonable, fine and dandy, but here's the kicker. Watch this. So, Juniper Simonis, a well-known activist and researcher, she arrived to document the police presence and said that the officers showed up and threatened those on hand with arrest, at which point the crowd moved across the street. But here's where things get very interesting. Simonis said that the police eventually left, and those waiting to get food made their way over to the dumpsters. This was around 6:30 p.m. About 24 people were at the dumpsters taking a few items each. Simonis noted that all the food was still in good condition given the cold weather, and one person picked up a carton of juice with an expiration date in March. Last time I checked, it was February, the middle of February. Both McKinnon and Simonis said the immediate action to prevent people from taking the discarded food speaks to the value the city places on providing aid to those in need. And I also want to add that they say that many of the people that the police had threatened to arrest and turned away were regular customers of this said store. Now, this is a very interesting situation because I'll give you the legality of it for a second. So, at least as it pertains to this particular place in Oregon, as I'm sure many other places, these food, these grocery stores, they have to get rid of the perishable food, by law. They have to discard it before it goes out of date. But as we just read here, a lot of this food, or most of it, they say wasn't still in good condition. There was a carton of juice that wasn't set to expire until March, and they could have very well given this stuff to different hunger organizations and food drives. They wouldn't have got arrested for that or hit with any lawsuit for that. They wouldn't have. They could have done it, but they chose not to. And I think this speaks to the lack of morality and human judgment. You have to be able to decide for yourself, at least in my opinion, what to do and when to do it. And it wouldn't have been anything far-fetched or unwise to donate this food because, need I remind you, we're in a pandemic where millions of people are struggling, millions of people are losing everything that they have, or at least some amalgamation of it. And hunger in America is at an all-time high. It really is. There's tens of millions of people that are going hungry. People don't have the money to pay for food. The government hasn't been cutting stimulus in the manner that they should be. And so these problems persist, and they're only going to be exacerbated as time goes on. And a lot of these people that are going to these dumpsters to collect the food wasn't just collecting it for themselves. They were collecting it for other people that needed it. Homeless people. Need I remind you, there's over 500,000 homeless people in this country before the pandemic. And that number is only being exacerbated as time goes on. I'm not up to date with the most recent numbers, but I'm sure it's higher than that. And it will continue to get higher than that if this country does not turn things around and really get a grip on this pandemic, as it should. But it also speaks to this current system that we have, which is capitalism. And this is a reoccurring theme in capitalism. You know, people that have so much that they can just afford to throw it away and then get police to come and waste their time guarding it. Instead of looking for the murderers and the robbers and the rapists and the people that need to be in those jailed settings, they're out guarding dumpsters to keep people away from food that they might need or other people might need. You know, it's the same kind of rhetoric. You know, you have empty apartments, empty hotels, empty dorm rooms because kids aren't in college right now because of the pandemic. They aren't staying on campus really. And you have millions, not millions, but it could be millions, you know, with the eviction, when the eviction moratoriums wear off. You never know. But you have hundreds of thousands of homeless people on the streets and all these empty rooms, all these empty places that they could be in. You know, you have all this wealth concentrated at the top and a bunch of people at the bottom that don't have any money. They have to resort to dumpster diving in Portland, Oregon. You know, this is a reoccurring theme in capitalism, but I rest my case. And, you know, this is a very interesting situation. It seems like they were able to get to it. And I hope that, you know, those people found something that they needed or gave something to someone that they needed. And overall, I would attribute this problem to the symptoms of this current system that we do have, because it creates these sorts of inconsistencies and problems when so many people are left out to dry, essentially, and aren't provided with the necessities that they need to exist in a country such as this one, to thrive like regular people should be able to. They're left out by themselves and they're reduced to have to dumpster dive to get food to eat, and that is not a good thing.